I've been doing game dev for a while now, about 2.5 years. And in that time, I've managed to release a full game, put out the demo for my second game, and fill folders with prototypes and game design documents for projects that may never see the light of day. But the thing I've made the most of during this time were mistakes. Lots of them. So today, I want to share my 6 biggest regrets as a solo indie developer. With the first mistake being kind of ironic, as I blame videos like this one for it. If you've ever watched a game dev mistakes video, or one of those 10 things I wish I knew before starting game development, you probably heard of this big and scary thing called scope creep. Scope creep is basically when your project keeps growing and growing to a point where it's both unsustainable and at the same time nothing like the game you actually had in mind. And while I agree that scope creep can be extremely dangerous for developers who are just getting started and really excited to try new things, I was so terrified of scope creep that I ended up going too far in the opposite direction. I planned my game, I wrote a game design document, you can find more about that in this video, and then I started working on the game exactly as I planned it on this document. The problem is that some of the ideas I had for the game were just not good. Or maybe they were good, but impossible for me to implement at that time. And by trying to stick to the original idea while pushing away any new ones, I ended up with a prototype that just wasn't fun at all. Thankfully, after 2 or 3 months of being completely stuck with one of these mechanics, I decided to be a bit more flexible. And thanks to that, I managed to release this demo, which I'm actually really proud of. So yeah, I would say that feature creep or scope creep can be a big problem, but you should still try your best to be flexible throughout your game dev journey. The next mistake I made is even more common, and that's trying to do everything on my own. I think there's this myth of the perfect game developer being, amongst other things, a solo developer. And you will hear stories about people like Concerned Ape, who made Stardew Valley basically by himself, or Toby Fox with Undertale. But what people don't tell you is that for every Concerned Ape, there are thousands of developers burning out in silence, trying to wear every single hat at once. And that was me. I was coding, designing, making art, dabbling in sound design, even trying to handle marketing. And honestly, I wasn't great at any of those things. I'm good at coding, that's my full-time job after all, and I would say that I'm pretty decent at pixel art, but that's it. I've always been really bad at delegating. I like working alone, and sometimes I feel like I should be good at everything I try. Otherwise, I will get frustrated and quit right away. And this really hurt my games, especially at the beginning. Luckily, after failing with my first game, Cat Survivors, I changed this mentality for my second game. Every time I could afford it, I hired people to help me with the music, the art, and any other areas I knew I couldn't handle myself. Because sometimes delegating is the best skill. So if you can afford it, don't be afraid to hire people or use assets whenever you can. There's no shame in that. And if you cannot afford it, you can always team up with others. And since we're talking about money, that leads me to my third mistake, trying to monetize everything I did. My situation is a bit special, and I don't want to share too many details, but when I was first getting started, I felt this huge pressure to make games that pay off as quickly as possible. If I made pixel art, it had to be perfect so that I could sell it on itch.io. If I made a game, it had to be Steam-worthy. No small experiments, no 30-minute games just for fun. Everything I touched had to have some kind of market value. That mentality completely changed how I worked. I stopped creating for the sake of learning or enjoying, and started treating every single hour like a business investment. I would ask myself, is this worth my time? Could I sell this? And honestly, it sucked the joy out of something that I used to love. Game dev started as a hobby for me, a creative outlet. But the moment I turned it into this hyper-efficient grind, I burned myself out and lost touch with why I started making games in the first place. It took me a long time to accept that not everything I make has to be monetized. Sometimes a dumb little prototype or a weekend project that never goes anywhere can teach me more and make me happier than any serious commercial project. I still want to do this full time. I mean, who wouldn't? But I know that I need to be realistic with my expectations if I don't want to burn out again. So instead, I decided to focus on having fun for now. And who knows? Maybe in the future I can actually monetize it in a healthy way. But the worst part is that my fourth mistake completely clashed with the third one, which is that I didn't believe in my own games. And honestly, I still struggle with this. Steam and itch.io are amazing platforms to share your work. but they are not going to magically sell your game for you. Marketing is 100% your responsibility. And in my case, the problem wasn't that I didn't know how to market a game. I mean, I had watched the videos, read the advice, I knew the basics. The problem was that I was way too self-conscious to actually do it. I didn't want to post screenshots because I felt my art wasn't good enough. I didn't want to share devlogs because I thought no one would care. I also never contacted any YouTubers to play it, even though I've seen them playing games that look and feel way worse than mine. It's kind of ironic. On one hand, I was desperate to monetize everything, but on the other hand, I wasn't confident enough to show the world what I had made. And that mix left me stuck in this weird limbo where I was working super hard, but also sabotaging myself when it came to actually putting the game out there. And since I'm trying to improve my marketing skills, this is where I remind you to like and subscribe. My fifth mistake was trying to be 100% unique. My first game was a survivor's-like, inspired by Brotato, but of course, it was called a copy. So for my second game, I tried to move away from everything Slay the Spire did, as I'm also making a roguelike deck builder. And that meant removing the procedural map, the relics, and even some cards that felt too Slay the Spire-like. And that was stupid. The truth is that not a single game is 100% original. All of them grab inspiration from other games. And if your game is 100% original, that's probably because you're using design elements that every other game out there decided to discard. One thing would be cloning a game one-to-one. That's wrong. But grabbing inspiration from other games, even if it's a lot of inspiration, is actually good. Vampire Survivors was inspired by Magic Survival, and it shares all the main mechanics. Stardew Valley was inspired by Harvest Moon, and it shares the mechanics, atmosphere, and even parts of the story and setting. That doesn't mean they're bad games. Actually, quite the opposite. They are great games because they knew exactly what their foundation was and how to build upon it. And finally, mistake number 6. Listening to this exact type of video too much. When I was starting out, I used to binge every tips and tricks video that I could find. And even though a lot of the advice is useful, it also kind of messed me up, because I started treating other people's experiences as rules that I had to follow. The reality is, game dev isn't one size fits all. Some people need art in their prototype to stay motivated. Some developers love designing systems on paper for weeks before touching an engine, while others just dive straight into coding and figure it out as they go. And all of those approaches are totally valid, but I didn't see it that way at first. It took me a long time to realize that game dev is so personal, and that you need to mess around and discover your own way of working. And that's the fun part. Oh, still watching? If you want to know what the best game genre for new indie developers is, check this video next. Or, if you want to pick the best game engine, check this one. See ya!